We're looking at the worst mass casualty event in the history of Texas.
Oh, God.
Fall back!
Giddy up.
Clear. You ready?
Born ready.
Mitch, put your hands up! Who does she think she is, Laura Croft?
Hang on!
Hi and welcome to Butter Movies. It's been the question on every fan's mind since Sierra McLean's departure was confirmed this summer. How can 911 Lone Star possibly write out such an integral character in a way that won't feel completely jarring? The procedural's fifth and final season premiere on Monday revealed that Grace left home to volunteer with Mercy Ships, a faith-based organization that performs life-saving surgeries all over the world. Before you Google, yes, it's a real group. As Judd explained, Mercy Ships gave a presentation at the Riders' Church, and Grace was so moved by the plight of forgotten orphans that she decided to hop aboard. She knew it was inconvenient, Judd said in his wife's defense. She knew that it was terrible timing. But she felt the touch of God. I can still see her face that day. Her eyes were shining with tears. Not just tears, this fire, too, you know? And I never loved her more than I did in that moment. Yeah, terrible timing would be putting it mildly. Not only do Judd and Grace have a 2-year-old daughter at home, one Judd is now left to raise alone, but Wyatt, Judd's adult son from a previous relationship, was also recently paralyzed in a bicycling accident, making this an extremely busy time for their family overall. Still, showrunner Rashad Raisoni tells TV Line that he stands by Grace's exit storyline, especially when faced with a less desirable alternative. Killing Grace off was quickly dismissed as it didn't feel like it was the right thing to do by her. In speaking with Jim Parak, who portrays Judd, Raisoni says, "The only thing we could think of to justifiably pull Grace away from her family and job was an even greater calling. And the only thing in Grace's world that could answer that was God." Raisoni knows that not everyone is going to co-sign Grace's polarizing decision. People are allowed to feel the feelings they have about it, he says, but we did all we could do to protect her character. Without getting too churchy about it, the Bible is filled with stories about characters who follow a call from God at great inconvenience to, and frankly to the detriment of, the people they love the most. Raisoni admits that McLean's departure rocked the boat a bit, as at least 4 Season 5 scripts had already been written, but it also presented an exciting challenge. "I have often found that out of great crisis comes great opportunity," he explains, adding that Judd's storyline is more nuanced as a result of his wife's absence. Judd doesn't have his job, he doesn't have his son, and now he doesn't have his wife, so it puts him into a deeper place of isolation, Raisoni says. You'll see as the season goes on that it creates this great complexity for Judd. On one hand, he admires and loves his wife, but there will be a growing sense of frustration and some uncomfortable feelings he has that he doesn't want to admit to himself that start to come out. As for Wyatt, the original plan for Season 5 was for Judd's son to become a bit of an acolyte to Grace in the call center, but Sierra's departure accelerated that, Raisoni explains, hence Wyatt already being fairly confident in his role as a dispatcher. But even though he's been taught by the best, we'll still see Wyatt waffle, but never crumble, under pressure a few times this season. Elsewhere in 911 Lone Star's final season premiere, Owen found himself in the difficult position of having to choose between Paul and Marjon to replace Judd at the firehouse, while Carlos, now a Texas Ranger, struggled to earn the respect of his new partner Campbell, Parker Young, all the while still obsessing over his father's recent murder. Okay, let's talk. How do you feel about Grace's exit storyline? Was she right to suddenly leave her family, or is Judd the most understanding man on the planet? And which other premiere developments have you feeling some type of way? As we go on, we remember all the good times we've had with the 126, and they aren't over just yet. While Fox has confirmed that 911 Lone Star will be concluding with its 5th season, the end is still a while away. The 911 spin-off just debuted its final season premiere Monday, after more than a year off the air. In the episode, titled Both Sides, Now, the 126 begins its end dealing with a hijacked armored truck ahead of what will be a massive derailed train emergency over 3 episodes. Meanwhile, newly minted Texas Ranger Carlos, Rafael Silva, is learning the ropes while balancing his married life with TK, Ronen Rubinstein, with the young couple having been married for nearly a year following a time jump since their wedding in the season 4 finale. He's also spent all this time trying to solve his father's murder. Owen, Rob Lowe, is turning to Tommy, Gina Torres, to deal with his brother Robert's death, all while having to pick a replacement for Judd, Jim Parak, who has left the 126 during the time jump, and both Marjon, Natasha Karom, and Paul, Brian Michael Smith, are vying for the open lieutenant position. Following the exit of the 911 Lone Star actress Sierra McLean ahead of the final season, her character, Judd's wife Grace, has been written off as doing missionary work, and Judd's son Wyatt, Jackson Pace, has taken over Grace's role as the show's anchor in the call center. I like to think the joys that Carlos and TK are going to have are going to come from an even deeper place now, because their world has had some real pain in it, Carlos' father getting murdered, and that also creates weight on their relationship. As much as I want it to always feel like it's a light, carefree, problem-free existence that they have, which they totally deserve, in the real world, life doesn't work that way. Even when you're in an incredibly loving, committed relationship, life still finds ways to kick you in the stomach, and sometimes that can affect your relationship. But what I think makes their relationship so beautiful is that it keeps emerging stronger from these challenges and from these pressures. And I hope that the joys that you get when you see these guys persevere through some of the things they're going to go through as a couple, that it will play on an even more beautiful level than it would be to see them be completely easygoing and be able to just enjoy each other's company without any real sweat from the real world. For Carlos, this has been brewing and bubbling for a year, this obsession, and it hasn't gone away at all. If anything, it just continues to metastasize what he's dealing with. And Carlos can't just pick up his investigation and advance it every week, because that's not how real cases work. So he has to just sit with it until some things start to open up for him that we'll get to. But that obsession never goes away, and every single scene he plays, it's there. This is the season where you see the man who Carlos is going to become. I hope it's not for the last time, but as we say goodbye to him and to TK and to all these characters who I love, you see who this man is going to become as the sun starts to set on this show. Having to find his father's killer, him becoming his own man as a Texas Ranger, as a husband, that was all part of the recipe of what we wanted to do with him. Even before the strikes, the writing was on the wall about 911 Lone Star because of 9-1-1 Lone Star Studio, 20th Television getting purchased by Disney, and the contract cycle of 911. It ended in a way that allowed 911 to more seamlessly move over to ABC, and ours did not line up so cleanly. So we knew it was going to be difficult to ever get through that. I'm not a contractual lawyer, so I can't say all the ins and outs of why it was going to be difficult, and just how difficult, but the writing was pretty clearly on the wall that it would be hard for the show to go past season 5 because of just nuts and bolts numbers that these two companies were dealing with. That said, I still have never given up my hope against hope that there is some spark that it could work. So we knew that going forward that was our reality. It was uphill, but my feeling was always, I want to end this series in a way that gives you a beautiful sense of a journey and close for these characters, but doesn't necessarily mean it couldn't have new life, if by some bounce of the ball, that was able to happen. But I did want it, just in case, and assuming that it would be our last, I really wanted to give us that last episode to make people feel like, okay, I got to know these people, and I feel like I'm leaving these people in a better place, where I've watched them grow up.
Everyone is trying to stay positive and Wyatt is feeling a little better, but he's still having trouble with his motor skills, barely able to pick up a fork. A nurse comes by to let them know that the tests that Wyatt's been waiting to take, an electromyogram and nerve conduction velocity, will have to be postponed until tomorrow since the doctor is busy. Judd offers to miss work again so he can be there for the test, but Wyatt convinces. The electromyography revealed that Wyatt's arms and hands are in fine condition, but his legs have a decreased conduction of velocity, and the doctors believe there is a 99% chance he won't ever be able to walk again. The following day, Tommy overhears Judd talking to someone on the phone. Tommy makes an effort to be upbeat for Judd by thinking about Wyatt's hands and the knowledge that nerves can grow back. Knowing how badly Wyatt wanted to be a fireman, Judd starts to cry. He and Marlene still have to tell Wyatt, but he has no idea how to do it or what will happen next. Wyatt is still attempting to pick up a fork when Judd stops by. His itching leg was either the result of phantom limb pain or that some neural pathways were crossed, according to the test results that he and Marlene gave him. She promises him that it would take 3 months and that he will finish before Wyatt just wants to return home. But Anne has the newborn. Judd is reading brochures in bed that list the less than ideal places the doctors want to send Wyatt. He believes Wyatt can live with them, but Grace claims he will require professional assistance and round-the-clock care. Judd considers quitting his work to spend more time with Wyatt at home. He believes he still has time to make up to Wyatt even though he has already missed 17 years of his life. Judd stops by Owen as he prepares the home for Robert and his family, who will be staying there while attending the wedding. Judd takes off the bandage right away, telling Owen he must leave and informing him of Wyatt and the entire predicament. Judd has a plan, despite Owen's advice to call it a temporary leave of absence rather than quitting because of the money. He gave it a lot of thought. Robert enters and interrupts them together with his wife and daughters. Judd walks away from them while giving Owen a tearful farewell embrace. Judd enters the hospital room where a nurse is finishing up with Wyatt. He chooses to sleep on the chair despite her offer to fetch him a cot. Upon waking up, Wyatt beams as he notices Judd dozing off in the chair. Gabriel informs Carlos that he was mentioned during the Ranger daily briefing since Carlos had been credited with busting an organ trafficking network. TK informs Gabriel about Detective Washington pressuring Carlos to take the detective's exam while he is on patrol, and he tells his son that Assistant Chief Bridges is questioning why he is still doing patrol. Gabriel and Carlos both agree that it's not the best course of action for him. Carlos is surprised and flattered by the question because he wasn't expecting it, but he doesn't want to leave Austin where their lives are now. Gabriel reassures him that he would be working in the city with him and that it would be a legacy, just like TK and Owen, who were simply following in their father's footsteps. Bridges made the offer and Carlos says he can't accept it. He doesn't believe he belongs with the Rangers. Carlos brings up what the Rangers did in the Porvenir massacre. One riot, one Ranger may have been written almost a century ago, but it still has relevance today. Carlos disapproves of the fact that they are terrifying individuals because of their appearance, but he also comprehends their need to be accepted by those who have in the past rejected them. As Mateo, Margin, Nancy, Paul, and Asha enter for a 126 hang, Gabriel wonders how long he has been ashamed of him. The following day, TK apologizes to the crew at the firehouse for canceling the hangout and informs them of the conflict between Carlos and his dad. Judd overhears and informs TK of the Ryder method, which entails locking them in a closet until they reconcile. It's a no-go since TK believes Carlos being forced into a closet was the catalyst for the entire situation. Mateo thinks he needs to get in between them, and TK has the ideal suggestion for who that may be. Nancy advises a good old-fashioned sit-down. TK had instructed Carlos to meet him at the park, but when Carlos arrives, TK is not there. Instead, his mother is there. Carlos sits down at the picnic table where Andrea is currently enjoying tacos after learning what his fiancé had gotten him up to. After Carlos brings up the negatives, Andrea discusses the fight that Carlos and Gabriel had and some of the positive things the Rangers have accomplished. Andrea tells Carlos that when Gabriel originally joined the Rangers, there were only 2 other individuals of color among the 96 sworn-in officers, including Gabriel. After being elevated to captain, Gabriel led an initiative to find and train individuals from various backgrounds and genders. Because of Gabriel, about 30% of the Rangers are either women or people of color, and he believes there is still much work to be done. Andrea asks her kid if he is proud of Gabriel and tells him that he deserves his respect. Gabriel wasn't proud of him for a time, despite Carlos' claims, so it's only fair. Andrea believes that he needs to release the tension between them since it goes beyond the Texas Rangers. Gabriel is now working puzzles and drinking tea, so Carlos notices several things about the house and realizes that a lot has happened in the last couple of years. He apologizes to his father and informs him that the Rangers may not be the right team for him, but Gabriel also expresses regret for how he treated him as a child. Carlos is not only saying that he is proud of him when he says that. He knows no better man than him. Gabriel tells his son it would be the greatest honor of his life to be his best man, which is why he wants Gabriel to be his best man. Kidnapping after a carjacking. At knife point, a man steals a woman's automobile while Piper, her infant daughter, is inside. Together, the AFD and APD block the automobile on the street, keep it under control, and try to slow it down without making the situation worse. But the man drives directly through a fence and into a swimming pool. He escapes the automobile, which is now completely submerged, and Sergeant O'Brien apprehends him. After some fight, Owen opens the door and cuts Piper's seatbelt with a pocket knife in order to save her. She appears to be crying for a very long time when he hands her over to TNT, but she is alright, increasing family unity. Although Owen and Robert are conversing, Owen can't quit thinking about their conversation. Robert acknowledges that he told his family last week, and despite their devastation, they were more resilient than he could have ever anticipated. When Andrea sees Gabriel wearing his tux, she declares it to be perfecto. When the doorbell chimes, Andrea explains that it is her delivery. Gabriel answers her phone and opens the door. Carlos called his mother to inform her that his dad may now wear a cowboy hat with a tux thanks to Carlos. Unfortunately, Gabriel is shot as soon as he opens the door. Carlos is still on the phone, pleading for his mother when Andrea drops the phone, runs over and screams. TK assists Carlos in getting ready as Carlos' eyes begin to tear up. The setting switches to Gabriel's funeral. Andrea tears as Rangers present her with an American flag in her husband's honor. Owen introduces Tommy to Andrea during the reception that has been held after the funeral. Andrea thanks Tommy for arriving and Owen for hosting since she wasn't able to have the house ready in time during their brief chat in Spanish. The blood would not come off with a scrape. Owen and Tommy give her comfort. Carlos doesn't remember because he was too young. Nevertheless, his sisters claim that their father called them out of school and had puppet shows. Interrupting them, Assistant Chief Bridges requests a conversation with Carlos. Bridges expresses his gratitude for having worked alongside Gabriel for so many years, and Carlos thanks him for his remarks made during the memorial service. Carlos receives a Ranger star from Bridges, who also expresses to him his admiration from Gabriel. Carlos inquires about the probe, but Bridges says he is unable to provide any further details. But his father spent a lifetime battling some of the most evil criminals Texas had to offer. As a result, he made a lot of enemies. Thank you for watching, and please remember to like, share, and subscribe. 911 Lone Star has developed into a popular program. 911 Lone Star has maintained good ratings despite the fact that the show it branched off from, 911, has changed networks and appears to be a consistent earner for Fox for seasons to come. At the very least, it will be when it returns. In August 2023, Lone Star won't air on Fox, according to 911. In actuality, the show has been formally postponed till 2023 and won't be returning to Fox at all. The present writers and actors strikes in Hollywood, which have forced the cancellation of all major motion pictures and television programs, are largely to blame for this. Is 911 Lone Star coming back? To be clear, 911 Lone Star was never going to return in August. It's part of the network's fall slate, which means it takes the summer months off and returns sometime around September. Deadline confirmed that Fox would be pushing the show back on July 11th, when it released Fox's new slate of programming. As with the other TV networks, there's a sudden reliance on reality shows and game shows, aka shows that don't require writers or actors. The outlet revealed that the Tuesday time slot usually reserved for 911 Lone Star in the fall will instead be filled by the game shows Name That Tune and I Can See Your Voice. The 911 Lone Star cast is in full support of the writers and actors strike. Rob Lowe, who plays Owen Strand on the first responder drama, joined the picket lines in May alongside his actor son John. He told reporters that his concern extends to all the crew members who work on Hollywood productions, as they are out of a job until negotiations are finalized. You know, the makeup, the hair, the grips, the electrics, you know, people who work long hours and have nowhere to go right now, Lowe noted. Nowhere to go while we fight this out. I really think about them a lot today. While an exact release date for 911 Lone Star has yet to be released, we're hopeful that it's near the top of the year. It's all dependent on how the aforementioned negotiations go. 911 Lone Star Season 4 came and went, and boy, did it deliver the TV wedding of the year. After fans waited to see if TK Strand and Carlos Reyes would tie the knot, viewers witnessed Carlos become husband and husband. While the events leading up to the nuptials involved Carlos learning tragic information about his father's death, he eventually pulled it together to marry the love of his life. What's more, the pair celebrated their happiness with family and friends, including Tommy Vega, who switched out of her uniform to serenade TK and Carlos with a rendition of Being Alive from the musical company. Please remember to 911, a genuine doctor severely mocks Lone Star's portrayal of mercury poisoning. The relevant plot originates from the Yeehaw episode, which is the second installment of the 911 spin-off. In it, the main cast members scramble to solve a perplexing mercury poisoning outbreak that has left people acting in exceedingly weird ways. The episode, written by the show's co-creators Ryan Murphy, Brad Falchuk, and Tim Minear, has more conventional family and personal conflict, but it's known for the week's bizarre case. Dr. Mike, a real-life family physician, is now taking the infamous 911 Lone Star episode to task. But the doctor saves his most ruthless criticisms for the mercury poisoning reveal. His quotes have been transcribed below. Is she withdrawing from heroin? Or maybe just acute intoxication with a substance? He's wearing cross stripes on a shirt that has plaid on it. My man, pick one or the other. Okay, this is some kind of psychosis. Psychosis-related excoriation where they start scratching themselves thinking that there's insects on them or something. Bro, she's stabbing herself with a fork. Can you show a little compassion? These are officially the least caring colleagues I've ever seen in my life. She's scratching herself with a fork, having some sort of medical situation occur, and they're just annoyed. Just because someone says they're 2 years sober doesn't mean that that's the case. And also as a police officer, if someone says no, move on. There's no point trying to push through in a situation like this. You test the blood and then you find out the answer. The danger of that mercury is if it gets aerosolized like with a vacuum or something or a fan. So the fact that they're all just like breathing it in and chilling, that's not ideal. 911, as a franchise, is exactly the procedural viewers might expect from the trio that helped bring American Horror Story to life. The characters will be discussing their routine problems in one scene, whether it's job concerns or personal insecurities. Then they respond to an emergency where a man has somehow punctured his butt with a gas pump. The original 911 and its Lone Star spin-off very much lean into these aspects intentionally, which makes the franchise a little more lively. It also makes the show easy to call out and correct, as Dr. Mike does, but that ends up being part of the fun. Even with the best shows that employ a type of case of the week format, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and The X-Files, the individual cases can sometimes drag. To avoid this, 911 Lone Star emergencies can be ostentatiously outlandish, like a body shooting out of a plane. I appreciate you watching, and please remember to like, share, and subscribe.